Hi, Book 2. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and since it's the end of the first quarter as of today, I thought I would share how my reading is going and my statistics. Cannot say that word, and kind of updating you on some of the goals that I had intended to the goals I set for myself this year. How it's going so far. Okay, so as far as genres, of course, I've read a lot of fantasy. I think it's like 19 fantasy books now, and they're all adult. So I'm definitely moving, I'm not entirely moved on from the YA category, but I've been reading a lot more adult. And I think it might have something to do with as much like my age. Because as much as I kind of am with I know that Terry feels like she can't relate. She has no interest in YA because she feels like she can't relate because she's in her 30s. And I will, I feel like, and I know someone who are in their 40s, well, they might even be in their 50s now, that love YA. So I'm all about defending YA and thinking that even when you're in your 30s, 40s, maybe even in your 50s or 60s, you can still enjoy a good YA book because we were all teenagers once. And sometimes they offer escapism, like any other book that you read, or most books. There are some, of course, I feel like I feel like you're not necessarily escaping reality. But but then at the same time, as I've gotten older, I've kind of moved on from it. Not totally I will never read YA again because I'm reading a YA book right now. I'm not reading it right now, but I'm just not as interested. I'm just find myself more interested in adult books. And that's partly because people have, I've been exposed to more adult books. I've been wanting to read more Stephen King, and then I watched Daniel Green's channel, and he talks a lot about adult fantasy books. But in fact, I don't even think he reads YA fantasy at all. And then, so I'm reading, and then I've only read I've actually listened to 4 YA books, and I'm currently reading The Exile Queen, which is the second book in the Seven Realms series by Cinda Williams-Chiba. I didn't want to make the same mistake that I made with a lot of series where it takes me a long time before I read the next book in the series. So I made sure I finally decided I needed to jump on that. So I started that one. And it does apply to the current readathon I'm doing. I could use it if I get to that, but right now I'm focusing on the first 4 books in the readathon that I need to read. I've only read one book that I personally consider more new adult than young adult because the protagonist is 19 in most of the story. Throughout all the story, she is 19 years old, and I believe from what I heard what new adult would have been categorized as far as age goes, I think it's 18, 19, and maybe your early 20s. I think the Magicians would be considered new adult. And I think you could argue that this trilogy is also new adult, or if not, or at least adult. Which this is the second book in the Nevermore trilogy, and I debated about this book if I was gonna just get rid of the series or not continue with the trilogy. But I wouldn't really have much of a reason except for I just decided I just lost interest and decided to move on from it. But I decided it would work for my current readathon as well. And I mean, this one is a definite because the Exiled Queen, the prompt that I'm putting that with, I don't necessarily have to follow that prompt. It does not go with the prompt the overall prompt. But this one does. This fits one of the prompts. I'm still trying to figure out what is. I think the world that Mia comes from is kind of a mixture of Spanish and Italian influence. It feels very Spanish and Italian, like with the names and stuff and the setting. That's what, like, I feel like that might be what J. Kristoff was inspired by, but I don't know, I could be wrong. But, so, to me, this is either, if it's, if they had a new adult category, this could be considered new adult, rather than, but because people don't, there's not an official new adult category, I think it's considered adult. But I think for the sake of the chart I have going, the spreadsheet I have, I'm going to consider that a new adult. So I can at least have 2 new adults that I've read. And as far as middle grade goes, it had, like, I ended up DNFing the Cube of the Lost City series, but I did read books 6 and 7, although I didn't finish the whole 7th book. I read most of it, but a good chunk of it I had a good chunk of it left, but then it just got tedious, and there are things about it that I really were starting to annoy me. I didn't like, and I was just like, I was done, and all I want is to know some answers, and I don't want to have to waste my time reading the whole book, because those are big chunky books. And I just don't want to waste my time having to read the rest of the series. I just want to know. And of course, like, so what I'll probably do is just look up, like, spoiler reviews and stuff for the last book. Because I know people might be saying, oh, you should read the book. I don't want to spoil it for you. It's like, I don't have any interest in reading the books. I don't want to read it anymore. I just want to know about certain things about the book. I want to know, if the guy I'm rooting for the main character to be with is the guy she ends up with, or does she end up with the other guy in the end? Does the other guy get his comeuppance because he's a very irritating character and annoying, and I think the main character deserves better than him? And I want to know how they do, and I do kind of want to know how they defeat the bad guys, but I don't want to waste my time reading the whole book. That is going to annoy me and drive me crazy, and no longer in a good way. So I just want someone to tell me. So because some people might be like, oh, I don't want to spoil it for you. You should read the books. I'm just going to look on YouTube when the last book comes out, and I'll look at reviews and stuff. And if they're spoiled, then that's why I'm looking for spoilery reviews, just so I can get some answers. But I still have Jessica Townsend, The Calling of Morgan Crow. That's the second book in the Morgan Crow series. I gotta read that one. And then I think Hollowpox is the third book, and it's been delayed because of with this whole virus and everything. Like, things are being delayed, like books coming out, and because I don't think there's not going to be, there's no point in putting books out because people are not going to be book shopping. I mean, well, I guess you can put it online. You could sell it online. So, I guess, yeah, that's the alternative, selling your books online. At least for now, which hopefully this will not last 6 months, because our state is on lockdown, but we're going month by month, we're, playing it by ear, so hopefully it won't last 6 months, but a customer that I see often, who normally likes to give hugs, but she couldn't because of she didn't want to spread her germs, she was saying it could last 6 months. Or she might have said she's thinking it's probably gonna last 6 months. And my mom saying, yeah, she's right, it could. So I'm hoping that's not the case. But anyway, so I don't know when Hollowpox is gonna. I mean, it could come out. It just might not sell in stores. You might just have to rely on buying it online for now until the stores open up again. But that's okay, because I haven't read the second one. So that will be my next middle grade. So unless I come across some middle grade books that I want to listen to on Libby. And I feel like this is going to be a year when I don't read a lot of middle grade. I mean, I think back in 2017 and 18, there were a lot of middle grade type series that I could get at the library that I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy. So I think that's why I started reading a lot of middle grade and getting into middle grade, because I could get it from the library, but now the library is closed, and who knows how long this will last. So, and the only middle grade book I have is the Nevermore series. Or I guess the Morgan Crow series. And then, that's as far as categories. And as far as, now let's talk about the genres. Genre-wise, like I said, I read a lot of fantasy. Of course, no surprise there. So as far as fantasy books, I finally finished Theft of Swords, which has 3 volumes by Michael J. Sullivan, and he has a prequel series that has a lot more books in it, I believe, and I have the first 3 books in that, because I actually happened to find them at the roast office, which I was kind of surprised by that I found, but never so often I come across where there's a lot of books in a series. Actually, wait, I do have another middle grade series, and that is the Barnabas series or something, where this kid in a gin or something. And I remember I had one of the books. I think I had the first one once, but then I was thinking, I'm probably never getting around to it, and I ended up donating it. But then I spotted, but then there were some booktubers that talked about it. I think it was Reagan from Peruse Projects who talked about it, and I had seen the book 2 and book 3 at the roast office, so I ended up buying them, and now I just got to get the first book, and then I can start reading it. So yeah, that's a middle grade series too. Okay, so and then let's see, I DNF Middle Game, although I think Middle Game is more science fiction. But that was by Sean McGuire. That was the only Sean McGuire book that they had at the library. And I was not finding the Wayward Children series. So that was another Libby related audiobook I borrowed. And I'll talk more about that later. And then I did read, and Nightfall was the 6th book in the Keeper of the Lost City series, and that was the one I did finish. Oh wait, and then let's see. I also listened to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I didn't like how there was a voice in my head that made me was kind of feeling like I had to defend that my only exposure to Lord of the Rings was the movies, and I didn't read the books, and I was tired of feeling guilty about it, so I finally decided to listen to the audiobook. So I listened to all 3 books. Okay, and then Spinning Silver by Naomi Novak I finished. And that was really great. I really liked that one. That's a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. Very female empowered story. And then I read the second book in the Jello Bastard series. And I think it was just announced that the 4th book is going to be published in soon. So that's awesome. Which actually it's good, because I didn't want to get to the 3rd book, The Republic of Thieves, until the 4th book came out. So, but the second one is Red Seas Under Red Skies, where our 2 main characters, Jean and Locke, become pirates. That one, which I think that's the one that kind of made me think of Pirates of the Caribbean in a way. Like I could see Jack Sparrow and Gibbs being like old man versions. Although Jack's not that old. I mean, he's not like an old man. Like he's in his 50s. I think Johnny Depp's in his 50s. I think he's a bit younger than my dad. But anyway, basically an older version of Locke and Jean. That's how I picture Gibbs and Jack Sparrow. And then I'll get to that one. And then I ended up DNFing, but I read most of Flashback. That's the book 7 in the Keeper Velocity series. And I read Elantra, so I don't think I didn't start it in February. Which, by the way, these are the February reads. And that is one of Brandon Sanderson's standalones as of right now. And that was I wanted to read that one along with Warbreaker before I got back into Way of Kings, which is his big magnum opus series. I just wanted to get those because it was just easy to get those out of the way. Although I love Elantra, so I don't know why people don't like it as much, but I guess it's not as good as Mistborn or any of the other ones. But I had a good time. I thought Elantras was really cool, and I liked the premise. And I always am a fan of religion versus religion and politics. I always find that kind of story very interesting when it comes to fantasy, or even history for that matter. Not, like I said though, as I always say, not our politics. I do not like our politics. I find them boring. I'm like, okay, I live this experience. I don't want to read about it. Okay, and Song of Achilles was a library book in a DNF. I didn't really care about the romance, and it was basically a love story between Achilles and Patroclus. I like the history aspects. I just didn't like, the whole focus on the romance and stuff. And this time I had tried to film this already, but then I got called out to eat dinner, so I decided to be more prepared, and I have the document called up, my writing document called up, so I can look at the list of books I read. Let's see, and then okay, and the last 2 books are the Return of the King and the Two Towers. Okay, so last month, as far as fantasy goes, this is when I listened to the first book in the Wayward Children series, Every Heart a Doorway, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, Beneath the Sugar Sky, and then In an Absent Dream. And then other than those, and then I also read, which I like all of those. I have a favorite. Beneath the Sugar Sky is my number 1. If I put these in order for my favorites from the series so far, Beneath the Sugar Sky, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, or Beneath the Sugar Sky, In an Absent Dream, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and then Every Hard Doorway. And I think it's because those ones you actually visit the other worlds. In Every Hard Doorway, we're in our world, and there's kind of a mystery that happens. So I think it the fact that it's in our world takes away some of the, the appeal. Although I still loved it. I still loved Every Hard Doorway, and the idea of them, a school for people who go into other worlds and stuff like that. I think that whole concept was really cool. So also in March I read my first Robert Jordan book, in the first book of the Wayward Children, in the Wheel of Time series, and that is The Eye of the World. I loved it, and for those people who are the haters who are all judgmental of it because he's trying too hard to be Tolkien, blah blah blah. Of course he's using Tolkien as inspiration. It's not like a carbon copy of Lord of the Rings. It's not a carbon copy of The Fellowship. It has a lot of similarities to it, but it's not. And of course, Robert Jordan, he's not plagiarizing Tolkien's work. And eventually he does his own thing. He was just using the Lord of the Rings as a springboard. And I just hate fans who are so how dare he? He's not as good as Tolkien. It's yes, Tolkien deserves respect. He's the grandfather of fantasy. He started all. I will give him the respect he's due. But that doesn't mean he's superior, and that that people that use his ideas, how dare they? And it's great writers steal. Good readers borrow. And then I did my reread of the Knights Orcas as well, which I was very happy I did that. I loved it just as I loved it the first time I read it. There are so many great aspects in it. There's so many characters that a lot of people, when they talk about the Knights Orcas. They focus on the circus itself, and then Marco and Cecilia, and maybe mention Hector and Alexander. And then, you might hear a mention of Tsukaiko. I cannot remember. I don't know how to pronounce her name. She's the contortionist in the story. But there's so many other characters. There's like Erthisen. I think he was a clockmaker. He was a German. He was the clockmaker. And he ended up kind of leading the fan club of the circus. And there's Mr. Barris. And and then there's Shandress, who was kind of the owner of the circus. And there's the Burgess twins. There's the Murray twins, the Burgess sisters, I should say. I don't think they're supposed to be twins. Madame Padova. And there, like I said, there's the Murray twins, and there's Bailey. There's so many characters, and then her writing is so enchanting and wonderful. You just get lost in the story. Okay, so after that one, and then I read, I'll stop. The last three are the last two fantasy related ones are fantasy, but they're horror fantasy. So I will get to those in a little bit. Oh well, since there's only two, I may as well just talk about those two. So I finally read my two Stephen King reads of the year. They were two novellas. And I'm also listening to Stephen King's memoir on the craft of writing. So that's another Stephen King I can include. So I'm gonna have to read, because you only get these books for 7 days. So I'm gonna have to, I feel like the pressure is on, and I need to listen to a lot of it. So the two novellas of his were in 4 Past Midnight collection, and those were the last two: the Library Policeman and the Sundog. I just finished the Sundog yesterday. I liked them both. I gave the Library Policeman 5 stars, and I gave the Sundog 4 stars. And they were both great, well written. I mean, it's Stephen King. There's still a bit of a creepy factor, but the level of scariness depends on the reader, I think. And one of them is basically, and one of them kind of feels like it's very connected to it a little bit. Like there's some kind of connection, like with the monster in it, and like Pennywise the Clown. Like I feel like they could be siblings or something, come from the same species. And the other one involves photography and pictures, and the whole thing about like how there's this whole belief, like where that Terry was the one who reminded me of it, that a lot of times there are people that believed that photographs, cameras steal your soul. Which is very interesting and very nerve-wracking to think about. And there's quite a few that talk about cameras and stuff, evil cameras and all that. So those are the only two Stephen King's. And then the other ones that are kind of in the horror category, but they're more like thrillers. I guess you could say Sadie's kind of, I guess Sadie's more of a mystery. And then I read The Woman in Cabot, another mystery. That one's probably a little scarier than Sadie, because it's like these, trapped on a cruise ship, a surprisingly small cruise ship actually, and our main character, our narrator, thinks that she saw someone get a dead body being thrown over into the water. And she's trying to figure out who the murderer is, because he's on the cruise. He's probably on the cruise ship with them. And then I also read and that was in January. The Woman in Cabot was in January. And then February was when I read her The Death of Miss Westaway, which is kind of reminds me of Rebecca a little bit. The premise of that one, a little bit. Like, in fact, the second I mentioned that the character that was like the housekeeper, I was saying how I was thinking to myself, oh, she reminds me of Miss Danvers, and then next thing you know, I read a line where a character says, she's very like Miss Danvers. So I thought that was kind of funny that right after I started thinking that, then I read on and someone says that. And then, and that was, okay, so, and then I also, as far as mystery, I also read Thornhill, which I guess, I guess that's the other middle grade I read too. And that was kind of an alternative format. It was pictures and then the part with the words was like a diary of another character's diary, which I thought I liked that format. It made it go by a lot faster. So it kind of reminded me of a graphic novel in that way. Except for it wasn't like it was one big picture. It wasn't like pockets of pictures like how a comic strip. It was one big picture. And that was a mystery. And then as far as let's see, what's the next genre I want to talk about? Okay, well, I guess next I'll talk about classics. So in January I read June the Obscure, although I didn't finish it entirely. I basically read most of it. There was a little last chunk left to read, but I couldn't do it. It was like something happens to these kids, and it was like too much. And I was warned that Thomas Hardy's stories are very depressing, but this one was I didn't like it. It was just too horrible. So I ended up not finishing it, but I mostly read it. So, and it's in my donation piles, along with another classic. And I will get to that one when I get to March again, when I get back to March. Okay, so, and then I read, in the first one, the first classic I read this year was Oppai in Years by Will Cather. And it's about a woman who gets her family farm, and of course, because she's a woman, people don't it kind of ruins her reputation. Her brothers don't think she should be running the farm, and they want to do things their way, but she has her way, and they don't get along, and it ruins her chances at marriage and love and stuff like that. It's very interesting. I liked it, and I think it wasn't that long. It was like novella. It was a novella, I think. I don't know if it's considered a novella or not, but I feel it was a novella length to me. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. And then I have her other book, My Antonia, as well. I got that from my sister. And then Pamela I DNF'd at 14%. I couldn't do it. I mean, the format was kind of interesting. It was an Episcopalian novel, as it was written in letters. But the plot did not interest me. I mean, I thought it would, but when I bought it, I thought it might interest me. And the good news is I bought it at the roast office, so it wasn't that expensive. Like $4. So I DNF'd it, and that one is either going to go back to the roast office or the other bookstore. Other used bookstore. I need to go through those books and divide it up because I want to send both. Because with the other, I want to, continue helping this used bookstore. But at the same time, you get credit. I'll get credit if I bring books to the other one. Although I don't know what's going on. I really hope they don't close up shop. Because it has a better selection, it has more variety. But with what's going on, they might not be doing too well. And then that was the last one I read in January, and then in February, I think I read The Warden by Anthony Trollope. My first Trollope read, I really liked it. I had a good time with it. But I do agree that this first one in this particular series, which is still a name I can't pronounce, it was still interesting, but it wasn't like the best book ever. But I did finish it, though. It wasn't a DNF, and I still really enjoyed it. And then, like I said, I listened to The Lord of the Rings on audiobook. So I listened to The Fellowship, and then 2 weeks later, I got The Return of the King, The Two Towers, and then I got Return of the King. So I listened to that on audiobook. And that also counts as fantasy. And then, I guess that's all the fantasy, all the classics I read in February. And then last month, I only read one classic, and that was a modern classic because I figured I was due for a modern classic. And that is Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is my second F. Scott Fitzgerald read ever. And I didn't hate it. I liked it. I'm glad I read it. It was an interesting plot. There were things that I liked, but then there were things that I didn't like. It wasn't the most exciting story. It was kind of interesting. It talked a lot about mental illness and how it was dealt with in the 1920s. And it's just one of those ones that, if you're a fan of the writer, check it. And if you haven't looked at this one, check it out. At least see if it's your kind of thing. But it's not like a must read on my must read list for people. I'm glad I read it, and the writing is great and all, but this was not my favorite. So I'm gonna okay, and then I've read one graphic novel that I finished this morning, and that was I started it last night and I finished. And then I finished it today, because it was a graphic novel, so it wasn't that long. And that is The War of Jokes and Riddles, Volume 4. It's, as you can tell by the name, the title, it's a Batman graphic novel. It's one that Terry bought for me, or either she bought it for me, or she just picked it out for me. I don't remember. But, we both love the Batman universe. And Gotham, the TV show, enhanced my love for the Batman universe. And I don't care what people say. I mean, even my friends are all like, oh, he doesn't count. But, now I can't think of his name. The guy, Cameron Monaghan is my Joker. I don't care what people say. He counts, in my opinion. He still had a costume, a Joker's costume. He was, his story was meant to be the Joker story. He just couldn't be officially the Joker because of the company was so worried about, they didn't want it to interfere with their movies, because they made the Joker movie starring Joaquin Phoenix. And, so they didn't want it, and, in the beginning I think it was fear that Cameron Monaghan would not do a good job, and they didn't want it to be tainted. And it's a beloved character. Most people, the Joker's their favorite. And then they didn't want it to interfere with the movies. And I understand their reasoning, but I also, as a fan, I understand the fans' frustration. I understand, people like Terry not understanding why, because, Penguin is, Oswald is called Penguin, they use the Penguin moniker, they use the Riddler and Two-Face. When he, although he was only in one episode, they couldn't get the actor back. They used Scarface and all those other, they used their names. They just, because Joker was the most popular character, they did not use the Joker name. They couldn't do it. So, and even if they didn't officially use the name, he is my Joker, and he counts. So, you can fight me on that, but he counts. And he will always be my favorite. He did the best job. And he was also, according to Terry, the most accurate the most accurate. So, if you are interested and you never watched it when it was on the air, it's off the air now, it got canceled. But it did get 5 seasons, which was pretty good. Unfortunately, season 5 was a very short season, and there was a lot that they could have done with season 5. They could have, although I do think they could have done more episodes. I heard somewhere someone said that they were given the chance to do that many episodes, but they decided not to do any more and just do a short season. But I'm grateful that we at least got one more season. I'm happy with that because 5 is still good, pretty good, even if, it was a short season. So, but it was on Fox, but now it shows reruns on Netflix, and it's on Hulu as well if you guys are interested. And it's like basically the origin story. So you don't really see Batman until the last season. Even then, you just see like the silhouette and stuff. But it's the origin story of all the characters. So it tries to stay as true as possible, but also doing a new spin on these villains and their backstories. And some of them we don't even know their backstories from what I've heard. So they could get away without too many people getting mad. But it's a good series. So the graphic novel is essentially like Riddler tries to team up with the Joker, and he wants to make him laugh because for some reason he hasn't laughed in a long time. He's like very frowny and stuff. And I don't know if I had to read the previous comics, the previous volumes to know why. But the Joker turns him down, and Riddler, and this starts a war between the two of them. And all the villains pick sides, and Batman's kind of caught in the middle because he wants to stop this war. He doesn't want to deal with this because there's a big death toll with this. And at first I thought it was Jim Gordon telling the story, but I think it was Bruce telling the story to Selina. Although he calls her Cat, but I think he was telling her the story. Like I said, at first I thought it was Jim Gordon, but nope, I think it's Bruce. And it kind of has a little bit of that noir 1930s gangster with the storytelling. But also has, since you're dealing with two of the main villains in this one are the Joker and the Riddler, so you get a bit of that morbid humor that kind of makes you smirk a little bit, or kind of not laugh out loud, but just, gives you a good chuckle. So I'm glad I read that. I liked it. I gave it 3 stars because I liked it. It was great. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like an all-time favorite. It was just, and I hate to say it, but I don't think I still like the idea. I want to read comics, but I know that they won't be. I don't know if they'll ever be favorites. I mean, maybe ElfQuest when I finally finish it. Maybe that one will be at least a 4-star. That whole volume, or omnibus, I should say, because I think it would be considered an omnibus. Okay, so let's see. Anything else I want to talk about? And as you guys know, I am doing the Magical Owls Magical Readathon TBR. So I started and that's why I decided to read. I finally decided to read the War of Jokes and Riddles because it's for the prompt that is the shrinking solution for the potions prompt. Because the career path I chose was Magi Zoologist, and I needed a potion credit, so the prompt for that is the shrinking solution. So, and what's great is some of those charms or potions, you can easily come up with different prompts for each of them. Because there's all these different spells that you learn in each of those classes. So you have no problem coming up with different I feel like the book Rose, who created this, would have no problems changing up the prompts because she changes them up every year, and this is her 3rd year doing this, and I finally decided to do this. And then this Codsgrave will be for the Charms prompt, which is Lumus Maximus, which is the spell that basically turns your wand into a flashlight, so you can do your homework late at night under the covers. And it's basically you have to find a book with a cover that's white, because light can sometimes be white or it can be yellow. And so I chose, this is mostly white with the black and the red in the middle, and on the title. And it's also, like I said in the beginning of this video, it's a trilogy that I was debating if I want to continue it or not. And I did like it. I mean, and I'm like, reading this again reminded me of how much I like it. And I'm one of those people who actually likes the footnotes. I think they're very funny and snarky. And they're very informative without bogging down the story with all this information and making it too wordy. Like adding, putting footnotes, you can give a little tidbit of information, but it doesn't drag the story. And you can skip the footnotes if you want to. You don't have to read the footnotes. But yeah, I get how they kind of take you out of the story a little bit, the footnotes, because it's a little off-putting. But, and then I don't know what book I'm going to read next. I think I've decided that I'm going to read I'm doing the dragon seminar prompt. So, dragon taming prompt. So I was originally going to go with Priory of the Orange Tree because it does fit. But, I decided that's a chunk of a book. So I still am going to start reading it again soon, sometime this month. But I figured let me go ahead and do a different dragon book, because that one, along with the other dragon book that I have, one of the other dragon books, is also pretty big. And so let me go ahead and read The Black Powder War by Naomi Novak. That's her Temeraire series, where what if there were dragons during the Napoleonic War. And I am reading that, so I decided to go ahead and read that one in bed tonight, because that way I can read a little bit more. Because I'm not gonna get a lot read tomorrow when I get to work. Which, yeah, I bring it with me to work, but the only chance I get to read is during my 15 minutes break, or if my parents are late or they drop me off really early. So I decided to go ahead and read a little bit of that tonight. So if I finish that one, that completes one of the prompts. And I figure with this one, there's 30 chapters altogether. So I figured 10 chapters per day, I could get it done. So I've read, I'm almost to chapter 10, so I'm going to finish chapter 9, then go into chapter 10, and I might read a little bit past chapter 10, like maybe read up to chapter 12, because chapter 13, after chapter 13 is the start of book 2, because he has this trilogy divided into, like, each of the books is divided into book 1, book 2, book 3, within the book. So I think, if I force myself to read 10 chapters per day, then I could get this book done in like 3-4 days. Now I have to look at my schedule again for tomorrow and see how my day is tomorrow going to be, like what time I'm going to get home and stuff, because it kind of messes me up when I get home late. Although, I'm off on Friday, so I could stay up a little. So, if anything, I could decide to read this book in bed. It's just I try to balance my reading time with my time being on the internet and talking to, like, Terry, because that's how we talk. Since she lives in another state, that's how we talk most of the time. And either that or every so often, we call each other. Like, she calls me more than I call her. Because I like being able to multitask. So, and when you're talking on the phone, it's kind of hard to multitask. So, but sometimes I call her too. Every so often I actually do call her as well. So it's like trying to balance my time, spending time with her via, Messenger or just calling her. And then there's shows I want to watch and booktube videos I want to watch. So it's hard to find a good balance. So hopefully tomorrow's not like late afternoon. Hopefully I go in the morning and I can get home at like in the afternoon. And that will give me plenty of time to get a lot of reading done. Get like the next 30 chapters done in this book. And then I don't, like I said, the dragon book I'm gonna read, and then I don't know what. Okay, so I guess the next prompt I'll probably start is, and then when I finish this one, I'll still continue reading the dragon book, the Black Powder War, but at the same time I will start. I'm grabbing the book. I can't grab them. I'll start these two. Let me see, which are The Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. And this is for the prompt that magical creatures prompt, which their main focus is hippogriffs. So basically, you pick any a book with a beak on the cover, and this one has an owl, and then whatever this bird is, so they have beaks. So I chose that one. I mean, I might have found a better example with a more obvious beak, but as what's her name said, A Cup of Books, I think her channel name is called. I would have to look at that. That in her little comment to me, we started a real over brief conversation. I commented on her video, and then she responded back to me, and she was saying how, just pick get close enough, it's not, this is just for fun. You don't have to be like perfect with your choices. So I'll probably read this one next, and then Merciful Crow is for the prompt, the herbology prompt. You gotta find a book that with the title that starts with M, and most of the time people do not count the, so I'm going by Merciful. And then there's one more. I think there's another prompt other than the dragon one that I gotta read as well. And I was gonna attempt some of the books for the other prompts as well, but I do want to get in a couple of classics as well, which they don't fit any of the prompts. And that is David Copperfield. I want to go. I plan to start this in the spring. I plan to go ahead and read this in the spring. But I also watched The Man Who Invented Christmas. It was on HBO, I think. And I was like, oh, now I want to read David Copperfield. Not Christmas Carol, but David Copperfield. Of course, it's partly because at the end of the movie, he runs into a guy named Mr. Copperfield. And he, the movie shows how he likes to write down names. Names that he might want to use in his books. He collects them, and so he runs into a guy named Copperfield towards the end of the movie. It's like, ooh, Copperfield, I like that name. So I got inspired to read this. And then I want, like I said, with when I talked about The Exile Queen, Anthony Trollope has 2 major series, and I'm not going to even bother the title of the first series, but the other series is the Pulitzer novels. I think it's about the British Parliament. But the other series that I'm not going to even attempt the name, but the main series name is about this town, this small town, and the clergy and all that. And this is the second book, The Barchester Towers. And the first one was The Warden. And although I am told, I think it was Katie from Books and Things who said, when she talks about Anthony Trollope, she said that you don't have to necessarily read The Warden. But I wanted to, and it wasn't that long of a book. So I'm going to read this one as well. I would like to. And like I said, I want to start with Priory of the Orange Tree. Like I said, it doesn't apply. I mean, it does apply, but it's too long of a book. There's no way I would finish it. At least with the Black Powder War, I stand a chance of finishing it. And then, the other, prompt is for. What is this prompt? I'm trying to think. There's a prompt where you have to read a book that is, the dark, I think it's the dark arts prompt. I think it's that one, and the thing is Grindylows. So the prompt is read a book that is set by the water or like the sea or something that's like set on the coast. And if I get to it, that would be this one, the Forgotten Garden. Now I don't know if it's. Oh yeah, I think it. I don't know if it applies to one of the seminar prompts or not, or if it just. But it might apply somewhere. I have to look again if this is part of one of the seminars or something. But this takes place on the British coast, on the Cornish coast, actually, on the Cornish coast. So I figured, this is like a girl from that was found on the docks in Australia. The dockmaster finds this little girl. She only has her suitcase and a book of fairy tales, and he takes her and claims her and essentially adopts her. But then he reveals to her, I think it's like her 21st birthday or 18th birthday, he reveals to her that technically he stole her. He stole her, and she decides to find out. She decides she needs to find out what happened and the story about her family and the whole fairy tale book, but she doesn't find out before she dies, so her granddaughter decides to look into it and find out what happened. And the whole Forgotten Garden applies to this in the woman's home there where she was born, where her family's from. They have their own little secret garden that she decides she adopts as her own, and then the granddaughter also kind of adopts it. And she also finds romance, I believe, with the Cornish gentleman. So, and that's like this is a Kate Moore book. She tends to write these historical mysteries. But I'm also reading The Distant Hours by her. But I might have to put that one aside for now, so I can read my other books, read all my owls prompts. So that is what's going on with my reading, what happened with my first quarter of reading. Now we're on to the second quarter as of today. Like I said, today I finished my first book was a graphic novel, The War of Jokes and Riddles. And like I said, I'm working on God's Grave. And then Black Powder War, I'm gonna finish that one. And then I will get to Woven in Moonlight and The Merciful Crow. So off to a good start. I have confidence if I just focus and just put myself and prioritize reading only. Prioritize reading. I think I can do it. There's just and the good news is that the main prompts I have to do to pass, there's only 4. So, and the other prompts I don't have to. I don't have to do the seminars, and I don't have to do the other classes. So only if I want to. So. And we got a month. I like that it's a month. I don't like that. I don't like the whole week long readathon. And 2 weeks is definitely better. That's why I always do the Tome Topple readathon. I always do it because it's 2 weeks. So I think if she doesn't want to do a month, she can at least. I'm glad that she at least does 2 weeks every round. I appreciate that. Okay, so if. So I guess I will talk to you guys later. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already and you liked it. Click the bell notification below to see when I post new videos. And I hope you're enjoying your reading. Alright, bye!